Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Thursday. This is Seattle Now. QAnon was a chaotic force in last year's presidential election. Now, a new crop of conspiracy-minded candidates are trying to gain a foothold in local politics in small towns on the Olympic Peninsula. In a minute, KUOW politics reporter David Hyde tells us what he found. But first, let's get you caught up. Fully vaxxed Americans got the okay to travel into Canada starting next month, but the U.S. border will remain closed to non-essential cross-border traffic until late next month. Canadians, you're going to have to stay north for now. The decision irritated Governor Inslee, who said yesterday he's going to keep pushing the Biden administration for an earlier date, or at least a partial reopening plan. Also a big bummer for people who live in the remote enclave of Point Roberts, which relies heavily on U.S. and Canadian traffic. Thankfully, still no smoke in the forecast for Seattle. Clear skies in the city today, but massive fires are still burning across the Northwest, and that smoke is missing us and heading east, like way east. The jet stream is blowing our smoke 2,700 miles across the country, making yesterday's air quality in New York City among the worst in the world. And Seattle Storm star Sue Bird will be one of two flag bearers for Team USA during the opening ceremonies of the Summer Olympic Games in Tokyo tomorrow. She'll be joined by Miami Marlins infielder Eddie Alvarez. It's Bird's fifth Olympics and possibly her fifth gold medal. Wowza. The U.S. women kick things off against Nigeria next Tuesday. Last year, right-wing conspiracy theories from QAnon were injected into the U.S. presidential race. This year, conspiracy thinking is creeping into small-town races around the country, including 2 hours west of Seattle on the northern Olympic Peninsula. KUOW politics reporter David Hyde has been digging around and is here to tell us what he found. Hey, David.
Hi, Trish.
You talked to a guy named Donnie Hall, and Donnie is a big figure in all of this. Tell me what you found out about his role in conspiracy theory politics on the peninsula.
Yeah, he's basically a QAnon apologist based in Sequim who recruits and trains candidates through this group that he co-founded called the Independent Advisory Association. And he calls these candidates citizen candidates. So, this is small town politics. These people are not pros. And he told me basically, they need some help with the basics. And that's where he comes in, teaching them what should they be focusing on, what do they need to know, sort of run-of-the-mill political stuff. But, of course, there's more to Hall's story, which is why we're talking about it. The first candidate on his list was a local hair salon owner in Sequim named William Armacost, who's since become famous as the mayor of Sequim last year when he started to publicly promote QAnon conspiracy theories to the local community through social media and also on a local radio program. He called QAnon a truth movement, and he also promoted QAnon videos.
Fellow slaves, it's time to buckle your seatbelt. Recognize your true enemy. May God bless America.
Okay, so Donnie Hall is obviously involved in politics, but is he a QAnon true believer?
That's a great question. I can't really answer that. I will say he now says that QAnon's a hoax after my story came out. And he told me he's not a conspiracy theorist. And Mayor Armacost has since kind of distanced himself from QAnon. But last year, Donnie Hall wrote an essay on social media attempting to discredit QAnon critics, basically through a different QAnon, or I should say a different conspiracy theory. And in it, he also called QAnon a platform for forgotten voices. He also told me, it's reasonable or was reasonable to pay attention to QAnon.
The reason why those particular conspiracy theories persist is that ritualistic child abuse persists. It goes on. It's probably going on all the time around us.
The QAnon theory he's talking about there.
That's sure what it sounds like. He's talking about child sex trafficking. But of course, we know that QAnon isn't just some sort of human rights group that's raising awareness about trafficking. The Q videos that his candidate, Mayor Armacost, was recommending say there's a secret war going on against a cabal of devil worshippers, and that cabal includes, celebrities like Oprah Winfrey and every single president since Ronald Reagan except former President Trump.
So Hall's Independent Advisory Association started with the so-called QAnon mayor Armacost. Who is Donnie Hall recruiting and training with this year?
He's working with a slate of over half a dozen candidates from Port Townsend to Port Angeles. In Sequim, one of the candidates is actually an incumbent. His name is Mike Pence.
Stop.
Yes. Not the former vice president, former municipal employee who moved to Sequim from Missouri in 2019, was appointed to the city council last year. A FOIA request by KUOW uncovered some emails, including one that Mike Pence forwarded from a QAnon supporter to Mayor Armacost. In it, the author says a storm is coming, calls for a big Q gathering in Sequim, and thanks the mayor for protecting children from Satanists.
Okay, but why would Mike Pence, not the former vice president, forward this particular email to a mayor who's been telling everyone to check out QAnon videos?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's not clear. I have not had a chance to interview him.
Okay, so are any of these candidates talking specifically about QAnon?
Yeah, none that I know of, but what seems to be happening nationally and here in Washington State is that QAnon supporters have shifted their focus to more conventional conspiracy theory politics, and they're working to take over local governments and school boards all over the country. I spoke with Devin Burkhart about this, who directs the Institute for Research and Education on Human Rights, which is based here in Seattle.
Well, what we're seeing is, the QAnon has dispersed, and kind of fallen back into a multitude of different conspiracies rather than being kind of an overarching catch-all for one or a variety of different conspiracies. It's kind of refragmented rather than dissipated. What we're seeing is not a lot of folks dropping away. They're just falling off into different places and into different kind of networks and organizational constructs. So that's kind of what we've been paying pretty close attention to, is how, as the QAnon myth has dissolved, where these individuals and networks are ending up and what they're kind of focusing on now.
So where is all this landing, David?
Towards more conventional conspiracy theories, like the theory that Seattle is issuing bus tickets to people who are homeless and shipping them out to the peninsula. Donnie Hall himself told me this was a big controversy in the city council races in Port Angeles this year.
There is now a fairly big controversy over how many of the homeless are homegrown versus how many are come in. They're either shipped in because somebody buys them a bus ticket, or they come in on their own.
And as it turns out, one of the candidates that Donnie's backing this year for the Port Angeles City Council embraced this conspiracy theory in recent mayoral forum, a small business owner and licensed massage therapist named Gina Stamper.
And they do come from other communities that say, hey, we know Port Angeles has these services and they can help you there.
Okay, David, this is a theory that has been floated in other cities as well and has basically been disproven. Is there any truth to this theory?
Right. You hear it all the time. And, there are some programs to help people pay for travel who are homeless to reunite with their families so that their families might care for them. Port Angeles itself has a program like that, and so does King County. But here in King County, I was told it's not widely used. There's no record of anyone headed back anywhere on the Olympic Peninsula in 2020. And on top of that, the annual homeless count this year out in Port Angeles recorded only 3 people from outside the area. So no, there's basically zero evidence to support the conspiracy theory that Seattle is exporting people to Port Angeles, or that's a major source of the issue. That said, there are some very serious issues in Port Angeles. There are definitely some people who need help with mental health that they're not getting, with addiction. And home prices and rents are skyrocketing, just like they're skyrocketing here in Seattle. You'd be surprised at how expensive rents have become out there. And some people are struggling with homelessness, like Alice Robbins and her husband.
We were in a house here in Port Angeles, and, our landlord sold the house. So we had no place to go, so here we are here.
Some people are struggling with homelessness. I spoke to a woman named Sharon Maggard, who runs Serenity House, which is a place that helps house homeless people and helps them with various services. And she said she hears this conspiracy theory about Seattle shipping homeless people to Port Angeles all the time.
Every day, the contractor that's working on putting up our building, he says, and I heard that we just bus people in from Seattle or some other place.
David, this makes me think, this muddling of messages and conspiracy theories, that there is more plausibility in the information that's being circulated right now. We're not talking about space lasers anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because there's a kernel of truth. Although, there's often a kernel of truth to all kinds of conspiracy theories, but, Oprah Winfrey and Tom Hanks aren't usually involved.
All right, so who is Donny Hall's candidate Gina Stamper running against?
One of the candidates, an attorney, Lindsay Schroman Warren. He's the incumbent. He called it a myth and a big lie to claim that the rise of homelessness in Port Angeles is because they're coming from somewhere else. And he says there's a strategy behind the big lie.
The reason I call that a big lie is because, well, why are they coming? We're told that they're coming because we have better social services here than the place that they were. And so then that prescribes a solution, which is, get rid of the social services, and then they'll stop coming.
In fact, this is exactly part of what Donny Hall's candidate, Gina Stamper, says she wants to do. The other candidate in the race is also a small business owner. He owns a coffee shop, Jason Thompson, much more conservative than Schroman Warren, but he's different from Gina Stamper in two important ways. Number one, he told me he does not believe that Seattle is busing homeless people to Port Angeles. And when someone from Donny Hall's group asked him if he needed help, he said, "No thanks, I'm good."
All right, so is this just happening in Port Angeles? And I am guessing the answer is no.
Right, exactly. No. This year after Trump's loss, it's reportedly happening in small town races all around the country for mayor, for city council, school boards. And I think the tragedy is that places like Port Angeles do face real issues, recovering from the pandemic, addiction, homelessness, housing, you name it, traffic. And when there's all this kind of persistent misinformation out there, it just makes it that much harder for the candidates to debate the real issues, let alone solve them.
All right, KUOW's David Hyde, thank you.
Thanks, Trish.
Thanks for listening today. Jason Pagano produced today's show. Our production team is Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Clare McGrane, and Diana Opong. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.